What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now, in this episode, we're going to jump in to how I have my conferences in College Football 27 for all of my dynasty modes that I will be doing. So, yeah, they're not like how they are in real life. I may have gone back to how they used to be with some of the conferences and just switched it around because college football, I love college football, but how they do some of the conferences just makes no damn sense and it drives me crazy. So with the ACC, it's basically pretty much the same, except we have UCF now in the ACC, and then all the other teams are still, you know, the same ACC teams that have been forever now. But as you can see, SMU is not in the ACC anymore because I swapped them with UCF. UCF, Central Florida, just makes more sense to be in the ACC than a Texas team. I know there's so many fucking Texas teams, so you know you can't really fit them. You might as well just make a Texas conference. But I don't know. SMU just didn't really make sense in the ACC, you know. But that's why I swapped them with UCF. So this is how I have the ACC right here. So you can go ahead and just pause it wherever. And then you can, you know, if you want to use how I use my conferences, but that's how I have the ACC. And then the American, basically, it's original, except I took out Army and Navy. Army and Navy just make more sense to just be independent. So that way they can make sure they always play each other. They can always make sure they play Air Force, and then they can play whoever. So Army and Navy just make more sense as independents in my eyes, but you guys can leave them in the American if you want. But basically, I have the American the exact same, just without Army and Navy. But like I said, you guys can keep them in there if you like them in the American Conference. But I like them, you know, as independents. That's basically how they were for a long time. Air Force has always been in the Mountain West, so that's pretty normal to me. But that's the American Conference I have. And then the Big 12. The Big 12 is back to how it was. SMU is now in the Big 12 because we swapped them with UCF. So now the SMU just makes more sense in the Big 12 in my eyes. But we do have Oklahoma and Texas are back in the Big 12. They should have never left the Big 12. I'm getting tired of all these teams moving to the SEC, thinking the SEC is the better conference. But they are a good conference. They are good teams. But like college football should worry about every conference, not just the SEC and the Big Ten. And I'm a Big Ten fan because, you know, Michigan. But still, you know, they should focus on every conference. And the Big 12 is a good conference. There's some great teams in here. BYU, SMU could be pretty good. West Virginia's hit or miss. Colorado's hit or miss. Houston's hit or miss. You know, TCU can be pretty good. Utah could be pretty good. And, you know, Texas Tech could be, you know, is a real good team as well. But Oklahoma and Texas should be back in the Big 12. So that's what I did. They are back in the Big 12. And then SMU is in the Big 12. Other than that, it's the same. This is how the Big 12 needs to be. It just makes more sense. I know an Ohio team in the Big 12 is confusing, but it's kind of like that mid, you know, part of the country. And, you know, same thing with Iowa State also, you know, more Big 10 locations. But still, you know, that's just how I like my Big 12 conference. So that's the Big 12 conference right there. The Big 10, basically how it was before, you know, the West Coast teams decided to come in. So back to the normal Big 12, or not the Big 12, the Big 10, just without, you know, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC. Get them fucking West Coast teams out of the Big 10. It makes no sense. It does not save money when you're traveling halfway across the fucking country, or damn near the full country if you're Maryland. You know, on the East Coast, you gotta travel all the way to the West Coast. That don't save no one money, bro. That's dumb. But yeah, this is the Big 10. Needs to come back like this in real life. Keep them teams back in the Pac-12. And then Conference USA, which is basically the same, except UConn is no longer independent. They are now in Conference USA. UConn should be in the conference. And why not Conference USA? It just makes sense with all these other teams, you know, on the West Coast side But then you have New Mexico State and Sam Houston. So, you know, this is just what I picture Conference USA. So this is Conference USA right here. The Independent, of course, Notre Dame, probably going to stay independent forever. And then Army and Navy. The MAC, basically the same, except Northern Illinois is back. And then UMass is in there as well. Northern Illinois, it makes no sense for them to be in the Mountain West. So damn dumb. They're not even, Illinois is not even on the West Coast or the western part of the country to begin with. So instead of Sac State being in the MAC like they are in real life, they are in the Mountain West. Northern Illinois is back in the MAC. That's where they should be. That's where they need to stay, in the MAC. You know, if they become a national fucking powerhouse, then I could see Northern Illinois moving to the Big Ten. It just makes sense. But yeah, this is the MAC conference, the way it needs to be, the way it should be. So this is the MAC. The Mountain West, basically how it is, but we added teams to the Mountain West. So New Mexico, Wyoming, Hawaii, North Dakota State, San Jose State, UNLV, UTEP. Sac State is a Mountain West team. That's how it should be in real life. Well, that's how it is here. Now, Fresno State is in the Mountain West. Utah State's in the Mountain West. So we did move a few teams to the Mountain West. And then Air Force and Nevada. So Utah State and Fresno State are in the Mountain West. And then this is the new Pac-12. Or I guess the new, but back to the old. We got Washington State. Boise State is now a Pac-12 team. Stanford is back in the Pac-12. Oregon State. Arizona State is back in the Pac-12. Arizona is back in the Pac-12. San Diego State is now in the Pac-12. Oregon is back in the Pac-12. UCLA is back in the Pac-12. USC is back in the Pac-12. Washington is back in the Pac-12. California is back in the Pac-12. Texas State is now in the Pac-12. Yes, they're a Texas team, but I could see, you know, they were kind of too good for the Sun Belt, I guess. So I could see Texas State being in the Pac-12. You know, you have so many Texas teams, you kind of have to throw them somewhere. Well, I believe Texas State is more on the west side of Texas, so sure, why not? And then Colorado State in the Pac-12. This is how it should be in real life, right here. And this is how the Mountain West should be in real life, right here. But, you know, at least in these dynasty modes, I'm the commissioner, so that's how I'd have it. And then the SEC is how it is, or how it should be, without Oklahoma and Texas. And then, of course, the Sun Belt is how it is in real life. Sun Belt is only conference with divisions. If I could, I would love to have each conference with divisions. But, you know, they're not all evened out, so it is what it is. But that is how I have my conferences in Dynasty mode. You can go ahead and pause it wherever, and then you can, if you want to do how I do it, that's fine. If not, but this is how I do it in my Dynasty modes. Well, yeah, hopefully y'all enjoyed this update on how I do my conferences in my Dynasty modes. And yeah, let's subscribe, all that fun shit. And I will see y'all in the next one.